Welcome back to the Talking Archive. My name is Josh Jacobs. Our conversation continues with Dave Berg, longtime producer of The Tonight Show with Jay Leno, as well as a producer with NBC News. And last time we were discussing how Barack Obama made it not taboo for sitting presidents to appear on late-night TV shows. And now we're going to be talking about Obama's successor in the White House, Donald Trump. Now, Dave, tell us about how you first booked the businessman, eventual reality star, and then U.S. president.
I actually booked him his first time when he ran as an independent candidate in the Republican primary in California.
Wow.
And this went back, I think it was 1992. I could be wrong about that. But that's how far back we went. And then, of course, he was a regular because of Celebrity Apprentice and The Apprentice.
Mm-hmm.
And so we booked him over the years. He was really an interesting character because he was known as anyway, back in those years, he was the cat's meow among Democrats and Republicans and Hollywood.
Mm-hmm.
Because he booked all these Hollywood celebrities in his clubs,
mm-hmm.
and he contributed to both parties. So everyone thought Donald Trump was great. But when we were booking him in the early days, and he's sort of known as the ultimate marketer, or was at that
mm-hmm.
time. And I remember booking him for The Apprentice, and then eventually Celebrity Apprentice. He would come on, and he hardly talked about The Apprentice at all. Instead, he was talking about how he didn't trust China, how he didn't like the Iraq War. He was really down on China. And there were several key issues that he would bring up. And I thought, what is he doing? Doesn't he want to... I was baffled, but then the thing that happened is the next day after he would appear,
mm-hmm.
we would get huge coverage in the papers. See, we didn't normally get coverage, in the papers based on what any guest said on our show.
Mm-hmm.
But it got to the point where papers would routinely report what Trump would say, and I thought, wow, what an unusual way he's promoting Celebrity Apprentice. But what never occurred to me until much later, maybe I'm kind of dense, I guess I'm dense,
mm-hmm.
is he was doing a trial run. He was testing the waters on what issues resonate with people.
Interesting, yeah.
He was using The Tonight Show as a way to do it.
And, of course, the Iraq War eventually became very, very unpopular. And today, the vast majority of people, left, right, and center, said there was a huge mistake.
I know, and he was against it. He kind of played it down because at the time people didn't want to be critical of it.
Mm-hmm.
But he did test that in the early days, and he actually was against the Iraq War. But China was his big issue because of the exchange rate they were exploiting, because they were manufacturing all these things and we weren't. He was really onto a lot of big issues, and he was, quite frankly, an easy guest to work with.
That's always good to have.
Yeah.
Because, sometimes it's just... a friend of mine wrote a book about Bill Cullen, and he was talking about one of Bill's game shows, Hot Potato, where they had a celebrity week, and Mark Maxwell Smith, the producer of the show, said, yeah, I walked in that day a fan of Mr. Television and walked out no longer a fan of Mr. Television, because Milton Berle was not easy to work with, and he was like,
no, he wasn't.
My microphone's not working, my mic's not working. Like, what is he talking about? Nobody's laughing at my jokes, my mic's not working. They're like, his mic's working, the problem is the jokes aren't funny. And Bill Cullen even pulled Mark over, as like, Maxwell, this has never happened before, but if you don't do something about Milton, I'm going to walk away from this show. And so what ended up happening, the question was, name the celebrities who've appeared most on the cover of TV Guide. And so Milton Berle said, okay, I'll answer. I say myself. And Bill Cullen said, wrong, now sit down. And so Mark and Bill just smiled at each other because that kind of, broke the tension, if you will. But yeah, I just mentioned that just, kind of a funny story to how they were able
Yeah.
to deal with somebody without having to, break out into a fight.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
That was from my friend's book, Bill Cullen by Adam Nedeff, just to let people know in case they're wondering, where did you get that story? Plus, I also interviewed Mark myself, so it was kind of a combination of those two things. Now, I remember you said that in your book you tried booking Bill Clinton on The Tonight Show, but couldn't, and you tried different things and just didn't work out. However, Hillary came on. How did Hillary come on, but Bill didn't? That's kind of an interesting situation.
It certainly was, and I can tell you why Jay thought that Clinton didn't come on, and why I thought that Clinton didn't come on.
Mm-hmm.
Jay's opinion was that we had turned Bill Clinton down early on in his first presidential bid. He had this idea to come on The Tonight Show with Jay Leno.
Mm-hmm.
And appear dressed up like Elvis Presley, because he knew Jay was a big fan of Elvis Presley.
Mm-hmm.
And this was back in 1992 when Bill Clinton was a nobody. Nobody thought, including the Democrats, nobody thought he had a chance of beating George W. Bush, 41.
Mm-hmm.
But the Democrats had to run somebody, so they ran this charming governor from,
Arkansas, yeah.
Arkansas, sorry.
That's right.
And so the Clinton campaign knew they had to do something to shake things up because they were going nowhere fast with their campaign. And that's where they came up with this idea. Bill Clinton goes on The Tonight Show, dresses up like Elvis Presley, plays a couple of Elvis songs because he played saxophone,
mm-hmm.
and then comes over to the panel and answers any question Jay has. Any question, no holds barred. That was the deal.
Wow.
And if you remember, he had said a few things at the time that got him in trouble, such
mm-hmm.
as that he smoked pot, but he never inhaled.
I remember that.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
And again, we had only been on the air for a few weeks. I was a huge proponent of booking Bill Clinton. The original executive producer, even though she had wanted to have political guests, thought that no one would want to see this guy running for president that hardly anybody knew anything about,
mm-hmm.
Bill Clinton. She said, why would we want to have this nobody running for president? And then if we have him on, then we'd have to have on that boring George Bush. And why would we want him?
Mm.
Well, with all due respect to Helen, God rest her soul, she was wrong about that.
Yeah.
On both counts. So anyway, we turned down Bill Clinton. He proceeded to make an appearance on Arsenio Hall after
mm-hmm.
we turned him down.
I remember that episode.
He got huge ratings, particularly among young people and minorities, particularly blacks. He got those two groups of viewers, and within 1 week, his poll ratings started to climb. And if you read, this is a fascinating thing, but many historians have said that the turnaround in Bill Clinton's campaign was that appearance on Arsenio Hall.
I believe that.
And that was our biggest mistake.
I remember seeing that, and Bill Clinton in fact, they started off the episode of the Arsenio Hall show, instead of the normal theme, it was Bill Clinton, and he was wearing some, it was Blues Brothers style sunglasses, I remember. And, he was playing Heartbreak Hotel on the saxophone. I was like, wait a minute, is that Bill Clinton, the presidential candidate, up there doing that? Because I remember a couple weeks earlier, it kind of went viral, but not really, where he was like, This is my message to the press. You know I can't be found sitting here all alone. If you can't come around, at least just telephone. Don't be cruel to a heart. That's true. That's my heart I'm talking about. That's my heart. So I was like, oh, he's doing some more Elvis.
So glad I didn't go into a Bill Clinton accent because I can't touch you. I can't. And so everybody remembers that Elvis. You know, he played the saxophone, Heartbreak Hotel. He had on the flashy Elvis jacket. But what people might forget is that he sat down for an interview for the rest of the hour, and he answered any question, any and all questions, including the one about smoking pot. And he said, Arsenio, I'm so glad you asked me about what I said about pot, that I smoked it, but I never inhaled. He said, honestly, and Arsenio said, so come on, was it true? And he said, who would ever say anything that stupid? It had to be true. And he was absolutely charming. Bill Clinton charmed the pants off Arsenio and everybody else.
That's the thing. Like, Bill Clinton had that likability. I mean, likability wins presidential elections. The same's true with George W. Bush as well, Barack Obama. In 2016, neither Trump nor Hillary were likable, and so they went with kind of the unknown factor. But then Joe Biden, whether you believe it was rigged or not, Biden had more of that likability, even though, you know, there's all that, you know, baggage. He still had that more likability, shucks type of personality that flipped the independents in his direction, flipped the moderates in his direction. And so likability is a big factor.
Joe Biden, as I've worked with him quite a number of times, was always known as a really nice guy, a really likable guy that everybody loved, Republicans and Democrats. Mm-hmm. That was his reputation. And
you spoke to him, I guess, a couple times on the Tonight Show over the 18 years you worked there.
We did, and we often, it was so funny because he was willing to come on. And Jay would ask him, he was always misspeaking. He was always, he had a lot of gaffes in his speech. Gaffes, we called them gaffes. Where he said just stupid things. And this was long before, you know, I realize he's an older man now and makes a lot of verbal mistakes, but he's always made those mistakes. Mm-hmm. Not to the extent that he's doing it now.
No.
But I think my favorite appearance was I had booked him when he was running as Barack Obama's presidential running mate. Mm-hmm. So he was running for vice president, and we had booked him to come on. And on that show, we had booked a very good George Bush impersonator.
Steve Bridges, correct?
Yes, Steve Bridges.
Rest his soul.
Yes, rest his soul and God bless Steve. He would spend 2 hours, you know, had a prosthetic nose. He went into makeup and he looked like George Bush and he acted like George Bush. Well, I neglected to tell Biden that we had Steve Bridges on the show, who wasn't on so much as a guest as to do a comedy bit during a monologue. So I didn't tell him about it. And let me just say before I tell the story, Biden's response, I'll tell you after the story. Anyway, okay. So I go and I greet, you know, Mr. Biden at his car, at the limo, and I'm walking with him down the corridor, and then we go to turn to walk down the Tonight Show corridor to go to his dressing room. Well, at that moment, Steve Bridges comes out of his dressing room dressed as George Bush, and Biden goes, "Oh, blank, blank, blank. Oh, is that you, George?" And Steve Bridges goes, "Of course it's me, Senator. Why wouldn't it be?" And of course, he didn't say, "Oh gosh." He said lots of other words that begin with a G and a D, and it was just funnier than heck. And he thought it was so funny. He went on the show and talked about how we sort of got it. We punked him. And I said, we didn't punk you. We didn't do that. It was a genuine coincidence.
That's funny.
Then he was a very likable man, very likable. I just have my questions about his mental stability now.
Oh yeah, it's because my grandfather died eventually of dementia, and it just I'm not saying I'm not diagnosing anything, but it's a horrible disease. It's just horrible.
Yeah.
This is the Talking Archive. My name is Josh Jacobs. We're speaking with Dave Berg, longtime producer of The Tonight Show with Jay Leno. And next time, we'll find out who his two favorite guests of all time were.